listening to OCCR, Owens Community College Radio.
We're in a circus. I got all the makeup and the masks. Everybody.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do?
I can do that. I'm Kerry Patrick Clark. Guy with three names is either a folk singer or an assassin. Come on, that's
It's almost
funny.
like a radio station. I said you got KPC on your website.
That's
I
right.
thought that was too funny.
That's right. Actually, I added a middle name in 2000.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because there was a country singer named Terry Clark.
Okay.
And I used to get calls all the time and letters saying, "Dear Miss Clark, we really thank you for," right? And I'm like, I'm a guy. I've been a guy my whole life. How do I do this? And so it's just like, I'm going to add my middle name. And
I like it. It flows for sure.
awesome. I think Kerry Clark is cool because it's alliteration, and most people around Toledo know that because this has been my home base for, God, I don't know, 40 years or more. But I add the middle name and Kerry Patrick Clark. So who am I? I'm a folk singer. I'm a singer-songwriter. I try to, as Sister Rosine Sobczak said one day, she said, "You're like a musical Norman Rockwell." And I went kicking and screaming out of the room. That's some old artist dude that nobody knows anymore, right? And years go by, and I'm sitting in this DIY workshop with this lady that talked about promotion, and she said, "You need a tagline." And I raised my hand. I said, "Like a musical Norman Rockwell?" And she went, "That's brilliant." And so that became and it's a quote
Wow.
from
That's
Sister
awesome.
Rosine Sobczak.
So you said this has been your home base for over 40 years.
Yeah.
How long have you been, in the music scene here in Toledo?
Well, I'll be honest with you, because I don't look or feel like it. I hope I don't look like it. I hope I don't act like it. But I just turned 60.
Wow.
So I've been doing this for a really long time. I started playing in Toledo when I was 15 years old, maybe even younger than that. Somebody gave me a shot when I was 14. But when I was, I think, 16, I got my first gig at a Holiday Inn in Perrysburg. That's no longer there, or the building is, but it's a different hotel chain. And started playing, every night, and was working my butt off. And this is a long time ago, mid 80s, before internet, before cell phones. We didn't know what we didn't know. There's no music program at a local community college, right?
Right.
If you wanted to study music, you went into one of three avenues. One was teaching, didn't want to do that, didn't have the patience. Second was jazz. I don't read music, that's not entirely true, but fast story. And the other is classical. I'm a guy with a guitar. I want to write songs. I want to play them. I want to play songs that are moving my heart and moving other people based on the top 40 charts. And that became my start, and
You
played
just
around town.
Playing guitar, singing, like cocktail hour at the
Yeah, exactly.
hotel.
Yeah. At one point, I was working one Holiday Inn at the north of town from 5 to 7, Monday through Friday. And then I'd drive down to Perrysburg, and I worked that Holiday Inn from 9 to 1, from Tuesday through Saturday. And then Saturdays and Sundays, I worked at a radio station called WOHO, and I would spin recorded radio programs,
Yeah.
like American Top 40, when Casey Kasem was the DJ. And I can't remember the other program. And then they gave me my own program. And then I lost my voice because I was using it too much.
Right.
Yeah.
And learned how to sing. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, totally.
After you were doing the radio thing, doing the playing thing, we saw you are on now your 9th studio album.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
came out in 2020.
Yeah, actually,
Your 9th album.
well, 10th if you want to count the first one.
Was it really?
Because the first one was that black round disc that has a hole in the center. Raise your hand if I'm going too fast. It's called an LP, a long play, right? That
Yeah.
you put on a record player. That was my first album in 1985.
And so
That's
you
cool.
had the first CD. Then after that, did you start doing CDs?
I did.
So,
1990, Simple Man
Yeah, Simple Man.
came out in 96 maybe, 94, somewhere around there.
Wow. So you've been recording and releasing music for well over 30 years at this point.
I have.
That's really cool. We saw on your website some of your accolades. We saw the 2014, I think, was it number one
Yeah.
folk song,
Yeah.
folk artist. That's super
Ooh,
cool.
That is
Super
cool. I'll give you that. That is cool.
That was really cool to see that.
Well, here's maybe what's interesting for you guys, right? Because everybody and their brother that plays music stands in line for the places
Right.
that either hire musicians or, American Idol, AGT, America's Got Talent, right? Whatever those things are. And I just never wanted to do that. I wanted to find a way that I could play my music, but make a living at it.
Right.
And so I partnered with a friend of mine who used to write songs for us. They became Sing Along Science. She worked at Crosby Gardens and then Toledo Botanical Gardens. And we did a series of what back then was cassette tapes that eventually became CDs. And we produced those, and then we did teacher workshops. And I would come in for free. I'd just come in because I loved the music, and I loved having something to do. I was living at home. I was a kid, right?
Right.
And these teachers would say, "We want you to come to school and play music." Well, what does that mean? And at the time, Red Ribbon Week was a huge program where there was government funding, state and government funding for anti-drug programming.
Yeah, it still is a little bit. I remember Red
Yeah.
Ribbon Week growing up in Catholic schools.
Yeah,
We used
exactly.
to talk about it.
I did probably 200 school assemblies a year for, I don't know, 10 years.
Wow.
And so that became my thing. And so I've done some really eclectic and odd things as a musician to make a living playing music. Certainly playing in clubs and doing all that and standing in line, trying to get on America's Got Talent, or for me it was every single nationally televised talent show before American Idol, and lost everyone. I'm not angry about it.
I mean, it seems like it's working out.
Yeah, right.
It's funny how you just kind of find your avenue and find what you're happy with, and
Yeah.
you kind of find your peace. I don't know, with
Well,
everything.
So you guys are learning stuff, right? That I never
Hopefully.
had. You're learning apps, and you're learning computer, and you're learning digital technology, right?
Yeah.
Long before any of that, we didn't. I mean, I would go to the library and scour books by any popular artist or anybody that I loved. At the time, there was a book by John Davidson, who used to be famous for being on all these talk shows and talent shows and host or star. What did they call them on? The $25,000 pyramid game shows. That's what they were. And he wrote a book called The Singing Entertainer, that was a primer, almost a 201 or 301 course in college for what I wanted to do, and I devoured the book.
Right.
Right? That was long before,
Before this it existed, right? Before
Absolutely.
any curriculum about it existed.
Absolutely.
So you're trying to find anything about it that
Yeah.
you could dive into.
Yeah. And what I learned was anybody and everybody can play music, right? It doesn't necessarily matter how good you are, because how good you are is in the ear of the eye or the eye of the beholder. So how can I take my passions? How can I be open enough to recognize when people are calling me that maybe that's I check in with my gut, and I go, well, yeah, there's something probably deeper in there. I should follow through with that, even though it pays me little or nothing. And I have figured out how to make a living doing what I do for 40 years or more.
Yeah. And that's it. And that's the end game for every artist, every person who's playing
that's
music. That's
definitely
where we want to be.
Yeah, that's definitely my goal, is to be able to support myself through music.
Yeah.
So
Well, see, you guys have a gift now with the internet, because you don't need to stand in line. This is a different line that I'm talking about with record companies, where you hope to get signed, because record companies today aren't signing you because you're good. They're signing artists because they have 100,000 followers, and
because
they're
they get
moving,
attention.
X number of streams or X
Yeah.
number of likes or hits or whatever on social media or their streaming sites, right? That's who they're hiring, because now we can get our company behind whatever you're doing and pour our money and energy into it, because what you're doing is already successful. The good news is that's available. The bad news is it's available to everybody.
Yep.
Right.
So how do you, and the similar with me, right? The noise has always been the noise. How do you rise above that din? How do you rise above the level of noise to get yourself heard, noticed, hired, downstream, purchased, whatever? I don't know that I know the answer to that, but
I don't know if anyone knows the answer to that really, or if it's kind of a lucky get lucky thing, or what it is.
Well, so let's talk about it. You've just brought in a copy of your CD.
My
What a
ninth.
Show, your ninth
my ninth.
album.
Yeah.
Excluding the LP
Yeah,
that
yeah.
no one knows about. But you brought in us a copy of your CD. How are you now in this age of the internet after the year 2000? Are you still selling these as CDs? Do you have digital online copies?
Yes to both of those questions. I actually ship 2 orders from Amazon. CD sales have plummeted. We all know this. It's
Right.
not an argument. The challenge for me as a 60-year-old folk singer-songwriter, the world that I live in, DJs want product.
Yeah.
Right.
And I get it. They want to hold something in their hand, right? I grew up in a time where you would go to the record store, you'd come home, and you'd pull the record out of the sleeve and hope the sleeve have writing on it. But music was an active participatory kind of a thing. Our music as art was participatory. You either put it on and you stayed around that area, or put your headphones on and you listened to the music.
Right.
Today, it's just another product that gets consumed. Yay, by the way, right?
Yes.
I could look at that as an old guy and go, oh, man, I remember the good old days. The good news is that we've all got music going on. It's in the background. It's in our iPod, right? Our phones. We're playing it. We're streaming it. All of that is great. So from a consumer standpoint, everybody's consuming more music, more art.
Right.
So how do you rise above that? And so for me, the challenge is, and I'm in the midst of trying to figure that out, because that product that you're holding, or that my 9th CD, literally cost me about $6,000 to produce.
I was gonna ask, do you mix and master your own music, or how do you go about that?
Great question. I have my own studio, as most people do now, because the technology affords us to do that.
Right.
Right. I use Logic. I'm a Mac guy. I have state-of-the-art equipment that most people can afford. It's fairly inexpensive.
Right.
All that we can get into if you want to, because I think it's really interesting, but doesn't necessarily matter for most people. So I have my own studio. I mix it. I don't master it, because I need to get out of the chain
Right.
at some point, and mastering feels like the place where I need to depart. And I have a guy that I use up in Ypsilanti that I've used for my last 3 CDs that I think does a fantastic job at a really affordable rate for me.
How did you find them?
I peruse the folk albums that I like, and the other albums that I like, but mostly the folk albums, because that's the genre that I'm in, and I
Right.
want to find out who's doing a good job from a mastering standpoint, and it was this guy.
I have a question. Why folk music? What got you into doing that, making a career out of that genre of music?
Yeah, well, the truth is I just play music, right?
Yeah.
But we live in a world where if you walk into a grocery store and you're looking for cereal, you know exactly where to go because it's in the cereal aisle. Art is no different. People, I'm not talking about me or you necessarily, but people generally want to know who the heck you are and what the heck you do. Okay. If I call myself pop, I'm kidding everybody. While my stuff may lean toward the pop, singable, repeatable chorus, hookiness of pop music, right? We live in a time where pop music doesn't necessarily look or sound like me. Pop music is, and I'm perhaps even dating myself now, but pop music sounds like Beyonce or Taylor Swift or, right, fill in your person. That's not me. And I also know that I'm 60 years old. Here's what I know, and this is from a business standpoint. There are 5 styles of music that people will buy, purchase, celebrate, follow their artists from the day they find them till the day they die. Gospel, jazz, blues, country and western, and folk music. Christian is another one, really. So maybe 6. But folk music is one of those genres that it doesn't matter your age. And the older you are, you're almost celebrated. So that's a win for me from a business standpoint. I'm a white guy with a guitar. What is that? An older white guy with a guitar. What does that say?
Yeah.
So I say folk music, and then people will say, well, what does that mean?
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I'll
Right.
follow that up with a couple of three names. One is James Taylor, because in the world that I live in, the older people know and love James Taylor, and if you've heard him, you'll love his music. If you don't know him,
Right.
then you probably know Ed Sheeran
Sure.
or John Mayer, right? So those are the modern takes on. That's still folk music in my world. It's a white guy
Okay.
with a guitar, right?
Yeah.
Singing songs about life. That's the world that we live in.
Yeah.
Because we can be an artist and we either need to hire the business stuff done, or we have to be either smart enough or poor enough, which we all are as artists,
Right.
right? To figure out how to mold ourselves into a genre. And the truth is, listen, I don't know that I'm that smart. I think I'm pretty smart. I just sort of fell into these things, and I ask a lot of questions, and it just sort of happened.
Yeah.
So, that's the other side of the answer.
Well, that's great. And hopefully it gives people an idea of what to expect when we have you here. And speaking of when we have you here,
Yeah.
it's our first concert for our Accent on the Arts series this year. Our 8th annual Accent on the Arts, October 5th at 7:30.
Cool.
Here in the Center for Fine and Performing Arts.
Cool.
On
Come.
the theater. Yes.
Laugh.
Come.
Feel.
Laugh. It's a free concert. You listen to Kerry Patrick Clark, a older white guy with a guitar, singing songs about life. And it's going to be amazing.
I hope it's good. No, it will be what it is.
Absolutely.
Every performance is its own unique
Absolutely.
thing.
So one of our questions that
Yeah.
we were thinking about was, why are you willing to play here at Owens for a free
Yeah, why
concert
Owens?
to come and perform, and you don't know who's going to be here, who's going to show up?
Because we had seen we have other shows. We saw your interview with WTOL doing stuff on the Sandpiper and whatnot. We know you have other shows. Why choose Owens? Why did that stand out to you?
They chose me. You guys know how it works, right?
Well, yeah.
You as music business technology people, you are required to bring artists forward. I don't know if it works on committee or in your class. I don't know how that works. But you ask the questions that you need. How much is it? What does it take to get you here? And they bring all that information to your class. A couple times I've been brought forward, and it didn't work out, which is totally fine. I get it. And this time it did. And the truth is, I will play pretty much anywhere that you ask, as long as the music matters. That's my water line. Anything above the water line is good for me.
Great.
So if the music matters, which it does here, right?
Yeah,
it's a
definitely.
performance.
It's a free concert.
It's a free concert. People can come. It's an incredible state-of-the-art facility, right? You guys are so lucky. We are.
Yeah.
We are,
Who
yeah.
are we kidding?
Right.
We are all lucky in Northwest Ohio or this region, the
to
Lake
have
Erie
this
West
space
region.
here.
To have this space, yeah.
Have you played here before?
I
at our
have
theater?
not.
No, it's your first time
No.
playing here?
Truthfully, I just heard about it maybe 2-3 years ago when
Wow.
Mustard's Retreat was here.
Okay.
They're friends of mine, another folk artist. Yeah.
Well, we're glad you heard about it, because
Yeah.
that's one of our goals is get people in the community hearing about it and get them in here to.
Yeah,
We need to get
nice.
more,
see these
more
shows.
people to hear about it for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, just a few more questions for you.
Yeah,
one
please.
of the things on my mind, I'm thinking, and for all of us as musicians, as artists, you get to a point where it kind of goes from a hobby to maybe you start getting shows, and then it becomes work, and then how do you do that for 30 years and 40 years and not get burnt out on it?
Oh yeah, we looked at your schedule and the amount of upcoming shows that you have. It looks like you're playing 2 shows, sometimes 3 shows a week. So
Yeah.
how do you continue to do that?
I do that because I generally only play where music matters. So when I walk out of a place, whether it's a senior center or a concert, to me, believe it or not, they're really the same thing. The gift for me in a concert is I get to choose the direction.
Yeah.
Most of the places, well, that's not true. Anyway, a lot of the places I play, senior centers, are sing-alongs and Remember When and Stupid Stories. By the way, I love all that stuff because I love music, and I'd rather play music than do anything else, right?
Right.
So that's the answer to your question.
So is it ever really work for you then?
It is. It has been work. There have been maybe 3 times in my lifetime where I got done with a show and I went, yeah, I could be done doing this.
Wow.
And one, I'll paint the picture for you, right? One was a concert outside down at a Metro Park system that has a performing arts wing, and they invited me in. It was August, late summer. It was 90 degrees. The sun was setting. I'm in an outdoor amphitheater, and it's 95 frickin' degrees. And I was sweating by the time, just drenched by the time I set my equipment up, which isn't a lot, by the way. And an old folks home had brought in their old folks, and they brought the handicap, thing down, and they were wheeling people off, and I'm looking at them, and they're sitting way far away in the amphitheater. They're the only people there.
No.
I'm going to entertain them because
Right.
I get paid to do that, whether
Right.
people show up or not. That's the gig. But that was not fun for me.
Sure.
And I got done, and I went, yeah, I'm not having fun anymore. But like 2 times in 40 some years of playing music, that's pretty
Pretty
remarkable.
good. Yeah.
I was
That's
gonna
pretty
say that's a
amazing.
pretty good percentage.
Yeah.
We're happy
be
that
happy.
you didn't quit. We're happy
Well-
you're still here willing to play music for us.
The joke that I tell my wife, she goes, "You going to work?" I go, "No, I'm going to play." And that's what it feels like. Even this, right? This is really fun for me.
What plans do you have for the future? What other things are you doing?
Well, I'm coming out of a pandemic paralysis. Those of us in the performing arts world could not do what we did for 2 years.
Right.
It
maybe
was
more.
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Is what it was.
Yeah. And so, and I told you already, I turned 60. Those aren't necessarily hard things for me, but I'm moving slower in my older age. And I mean that from a mental standpoint. I don't have the hunger that I used to have.
Right.
I have the passion and the love that I used to have. And I also have this belief that I thought as a kid that if I just recorded my stuff and put it out there, it would be good enough, or I would be good enough that it would get noticed, picked up, bought, signed, right, whatever the dream was at the time. I still have that hope, desire, belief, certainly less than when I was a kid, because the hunger's not as strong as it used to be. And it's a lot of work to be your own everything. Booking
Absolutely.
agent, and I'm the guy that has to troubleshoot or change the strings, or right. None of that's bad. I chose that, and I would rather do that than work behind a desk for a living.
Right.
But I noticed that, and here's the other side of the story. I married an incredible human being 27 years ago this September, by the way.
Wow. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Whose family was in real estate. And so we have owned and still do multifamily units, industrial buildings, single family units, and part of the gift that I am to that relationship is I know how to fix things, and I do that. And that became my job.
Okay.
And has become my job a lot more than music has over the years, because honestly I make more money doing that than I do playing music. And I wanted to be home for our child he'll be 21 in December, just moved out, to raise a child. I didn't want to be traveling around.
Right.
And so I look back at my life and I go, all of it's been a gift. I don't regret any of it. I really don't. Do I wish that I was a little more famous or something? Yeah, absolutely. But I made choices that have brought me to this moment, and I'm really grateful for them. So what does the future hold? Probably another album, maybe my last, and it may be only digital.
Okay.
And when I say only my last, we as a music as a business is moving towards single releases instead of album releases.
It is.
And there's a reason for that, because you every month, if you bring out a single, you have a big ta-da on social media, right? Which garnishes more attention than ta-da, here's my CD. And so that's kind of the direction that we're moving in. Unfortunately, folk is we're a bunch of older people. We want the dang I want to see the product in my hand. Oh.
I just have one last thing before we close out.
Yeah.
And any interesting, like the worst or best experience you ever had at a show?
I'll give you both.
Any fun
I'll give you
stories?
both. Okay, here's the best, because it was pretty amazing. In 1985, I got to tour with the 25th anniversary edition of the New Christie Minstrels. Google them. They're an old folk group. Pretty cool for a 21-year-old kid from Northwest Ohio to travel, right? We got to play with the Portland Symphony Orchestra, and we were in Portland for the entire week. We practiced several times with the orchestra, and then we did what was called a Pops concert. And I'm 21. I'm standing in front of a 90-piece orchestra, looking out at a theater that had 4 tiers to it, right? The main floor,
that's awesome.
and then 4 tiers. And I'm just like, are you kidding me right now? No cell phone, no digital camera, no nothing. I have no record of this other than this memory of, okay, that's really cool,
Wow.
right?
And that's something you'll never forget.
Never
Ever.
forget. No, because
in
there's
your life.
something really cool about having an orchestra
Yeah.
play behind. And my song, when I toured with him, was Today, While the Blossoms Still Cling to the Vine, which is actually better known for John Denver in this circle. And there's a whole other story there that maybe I'll tell at the concert. But that was my song. I wanted to own that song, and I got to do that song every night when we toured.
That's awesome.
It was crazy. The crappiest night of my life was either the story that I told you of singing down at the Metro Park, or this. My 7th grade social studies teacher at McCord Junior High was a guy named Eddie Boggs, who at the time was the really well-known singer-songwriter dude in Northwest Ohio, Southeast Michigan. He became my mentor. He played every Friday and Saturday night at a restaurant called the Hathaway House up in Blissfield, Michigan. So we would go up there, and it was an old house that a doctor bought, and then folks came in and turned it into a very fine restaurant. The upstairs had a stage, 2 stairs, both sides, and 2 rooms on the outside, and a small set of tables in front of the stage. And we would constantly look left, look right, and look in front. Behind us was a closet, and behind that was the station where the wait staff would get the food and bring it out. Okay. It was one of those nights where nothing was going right. And Eddie looked at me, my music mentor. He goes, Kerry, can you take a guitar and just change the strings and tune it up? All of our gear is in the closet behind the stage. Yeah, not a problem. So we went back, and I closed the door, turned on the light. I got the strings changed. I got it tuned up. I turned the light off, and I reached for the handle of the door, and I couldn't find the handle of the door. And so I turned the light back on. I'm like, well, this is really bizarre. Well, there is no handle. I can't get out.
Oh no.
Oh, no, exactly. The good news is
janitor closet with no handle on the other side.
it's a louvered door, right? I turn the light back off. I can see people coming around. And I also know the wait staff is going to go back and forth. So I'm just waiting for one of them to come out. And I didn't see anybody, but the salad bar people was in the room that my door overlooked. And they would come right by this door. And finally I saw this older woman. She was carrying her salad. I went, excuse me, and she stopped with her plate of food, and she's looking at this door, and I know how ridiculous this must look. Excuse me, I don't mean to scare you, but can you open this door? There's a pregnant pause, and she reaches the handle, and she opens it up, and she goes, oh my God, I can't believe you're in there. I go, well, we're having issues. I had to tune a guitar, yada, yada. I said, there's no handle. I couldn't get out, and I didn't mean to scare you. You didn't scare me, and then we just had this moment.
Wow.
Right? That perhaps is probably the funniest moment. I don't know. That just came to my brain.
Getting stuck in a closet right before the show.
I came out of the closet. Oh, never mind. No. Let's not go there.
All right, well, Kerry, thank you for being here with us again. My name is Aiden.
I'm Collin.
Collin, thank you.
Aiden, Collin, I'm Kerry.
That's Kerry.
Come on.
Thank you for joining us, Kerry. We are so excited once again to have you for our 8th annual Accent on the Arts on October 5th at 7:30 p.m. in the Center for Fine and Performing Arts here at Owens Community College. Thank you for being here with us.
You're welcome. Thanks, Aiden.
And you are listening to Outcast OCCR, Owens Community College Radio. Thank you.